On October 1st, 2025, hundreds of strangers were glued to their phones watching a TikTok live stream of a tiny figure moving slowly across the granite face of El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. They did not know his name. They had been watching him for 6 straight days, and the only name they had was Orange Tent Guy because of the bright orange tent he slept in while suspended thousands of feet above the valley floor. What happened in the final minutes of that stream would shake the entire climbing world and ignite a conversation about safety social media and what it truly means to live on the edge. That man was Balin Miller. Born on January 12, 2002 in Anchorage, Alaska, he was just 23 years old when he died. He was not an influencer. He was not chasing followers or posting for likes. He was one of the most gifted and fearless alpinists of his entire generation. A young man who had already done things that most professional climbers only ever dream about. The world just did not know his name yet, and by the time it did, it was already too late. He had given his life to one thing, and in doing so become extraordinary at it. How did a 3-year-old from Alaska become one of the world's best climbers? Balin's connection to climbing started before most kids learned to read. At just 3 years old, he was tagging along with his father David and older brother Dylan on routes along the Seward Highway south of Anchorage. What began as family trips turned into a full consuming obsession. By 12, Balin was tackling frozen waterfalls near Valdez. Ice climbs most experienced adults would refuse to attempt, and Balin was doing them as a teenager without hesitation. To fund his climbing, Balin worked brutal seasonal jobs. He fished crab in Nome, Alaska, and worked at a mine in the southeast of the state. Every dollar went back into gear permits and expeditions. He lived out of his car. He slept in parking lots in Canmore, Canada for weeks at a time, including the Safeway parking lot, which he jokingly listed as his home address. He attended Montana State University in Bozeman with his brother Dylan, and he taught his younger sister Mia how to climb before she started elementary school. He just wanted to be in the mountains testing himself. That was all he needed. What did Balin Miller achieve that no one else dared to attempt? By 2025, Balin Miller had completed an estimated 500 climbs. He was a team ambassador for Millet and Black Diamond, and had received grants from the American Alpine Club. At 23, he was already being mentioned alongside the most respected alpinists alive. But his 2025 season alone was operating on a level most climbers never reach in an entire career. In January 2025, he soloed Reality Bath on White Pyramid in Canada, a WI 5 and 6 ice climb that had only been done once before in 1988 by Mark Twight and Randy Ratcliffe. It had gone unrepeated for 37 years, and Balin did it alone. In May, he spent 53 consecutive days in the Alaska Range and soloed Mount Hunter's French Connection in just 17 hours and 30 minutes. Then came the climb that stunned the world. On June 3, 2025, Balin began soloing the Slovak Direct on Denali's south face. 9,000 feet of steep ice, mixed rock, and technical terrain that had never been soloed before. Most elite climbers would not attempt it with a partner. Balin did it alone in 56 hours. Colin Haley called it super badass. Mark Twight responded with 2 words: holy. He was 23. Why did hundreds of strangers fall in love with someone they never met? What made Balin impossible to ignore had nothing to do with social media. It was simply who he was. He wore bright colors everywhere he went. Before any serious climb, he pressed glitter onto his cheeks and called it his war makeup. It became his signature. His favorite phrase was "to be fair." He used it constantly, walking into every conversation, ready to challenge an idea or push back on whatever was being discussed. His brother Dylan described him as magnetic, goofy, quick-witted, and absolutely unforgettable. He was brutally honest in a way that occasionally frustrated people. He said exactly what was on his mind even when the moment did not call for it. But friends never held it against him because his heart was always larger than his ego. He gave away gear to climbers who needed it. He taught anyone who wanted to learn. He pushed partners toward routes they did not think they could do. And somehow hundreds of strangers watching a TikTok stream fell completely in love with a man they only knew as a bright orange dot on a massive rock wall. That is the kind of person he was, and it is exactly why strangers grieved him, as if they had lost someone they actually knew. What was the Sea of Dreams and why did Balin choose it? In late September 2025, Balin arrived in Yosemite with one goal. He was going to solo Sea of Dreams, one of El Capitan's most demanding aid routes. The route climbs 2,400 feet up the southeast face of the granite monolith across 26 pitches, with a rating of 5.9 A4. That A4 designation means sections where protection is unreliable and a fall is almost certainly fatal. This was not a casual objective. This was the kind of route that defines entire careers. Balin was climbing alone using lead rope soloing. No partner below. No one to catch mistakes. Every anchor had to be perfect, and every system had to be correct the first time. On September 28th, he started up the wall carrying gear and haul bags he pulled up after each pitch. He slept in his orange tent, hanging off anchors on the wall. He ate there, woke there, and climbed every day. 6 days later, on October 1st, he reached the top of Sea of Dreams. He had done it completely solo. He stood near the summit of one of the most iconic walls on Earth, having just done something extraordinary. That moment should have been the triumphant ending of this story. It was not. Who was secretly filming him, and why did it matter? While Balin climbed his way up El Capitan, someone in the meadow far below had been watching through a lens for days. A TikTok user who called himself Eric and went by the handle Mountains Calling Me had set up a spotting scope in El Capitan Meadow and was broadcasting climbers on the wall live to his followers. He did not know the names of anyone he filmed, so he gave them nicknames based on their gear. Balin became Orange Tent Guy because of the bright orange portable ledge he used as his tent on the wall. Over 6 days, hundreds of people tuned in to follow Orange Tent Guy's progress. The comment section was full of encouragement and excitement. Viewers cheered him on, speculating about who he was and rooting for him to reach the top. They watched him haul bags, set anchors, and rest thousands of feet above the valley floor. Balin had no idea any of this was happening. He was absolutely not performing for anyone. He was not chasing anything except the pitch in front of him. The audience watching from below had no idea they were about to witness something they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. What exactly went wrong at the top of El Capitan? After Balin finished Sea of Dreams, his haul bag, the heavy gear bag carrying most of his equipment, had snagged somewhere on the rock face below his anchor point near the summit. This is not unusual on big wall climbs. Bags catch on edges and rock features all the time, and the response is simple. You set up a rappel, descend to the bag, free it, and continue. It is an inconvenience. Nothing about this situation should have been fatal. Balin set up his rappel and started descending toward the stuck bag. But the rope was not long enough to reach where the bag was caught. He kept going past the point where the rope could hold him. And then he rappelled off the end of the rope entirely. With nothing to stop him, he fell 2,400 feet down the face of El Capitan. The live stream was still running. The chat exploded. Some viewers thought it was a controlled move. Others understood immediately, and the horror in the comments was instant. Eric called 911. Yosemite photographer Tom Evans, who was also watching, called for help. Rangers responded, but there was nothing to do. Balin Miller was gone. With him ended one of the most promising careers the climbing world had ever watched begin. What is a stopper knot, and could it have saved his life? In the aftermath, investigators and the climbing community worked to understand exactly what had gone wrong. The technical answer is devastating in how simple it is. When climbers set up a rappel, they are trained to tie a stopper knot at the end of their rope. The knot is thick enough that it cannot pass through a rappel device. If you reach the end of the rope, the knot physically stops you from going any further. Without that knot, the rope slides straight through, and when the last inch exits the device, there is nothing holding you. Whether Balin tied a stopper knot that day is still not confirmed. He may not have. The knot may have come undone. What is certain is that after 6 exhausting days on the wall, after completing one of El Capitan's hardest routes, something went wrong in the most ordinary moment of the entire climb. Rappelling is something climbers do so many times it becomes automatic. You stop pausing to check. You stop running through the steps, because you have done them 1,000 times before. Balin had survived solo ascents on Denali that full professional teams would refuse. How did the world react, and what did the media get wrong? When news of Balin's death broke, the media ran with the story, and almost immediately they got everything wrong. News outlets called him a TikTok climber and an influencer. Headlines claimed he had been live streaming his own death. Articles described him as someone performing for views, chasing attention online. None of it was true. Balin was never live streaming himself. He did not know a camera existed. A stranger with a spotting scope had filmed him and broadcast 6 days of his life, including his final moments, to thousands of people entirely without his knowledge or consent. His mother grieved publicly while the press told a story that bore no resemblance to reality. She said she was proud of him and called him an incredible athlete. Then, simply and honestly, she said what she truly felt. "I am pissed that he is dead." But he did make that summit. What legacy did Balin Miller leave behind? After Balin died, his family created the Balin Scott Miller Foundation. It provides grants to young climbers under the age of 24, which is the age Balin would have turned on his next birthday. The grants fund climbing gear and footwear for young people who want to climb but cannot afford the equipment. One is called the Orange Tent Guy Grant for essential climbing gear. The other is the To Be Fair Balin Shoe Grant for footwear. Both names come directly from what defined him. At his memorial, his aunt created over 200 orange fused glass hearts each, with a message asking the receiver to take it on their next adventure, photograph it, and share the image. Photos have arrived from mountain summits, riverbanks, and climbing walls across the world. His death also carried an urgent message through the climbing community. Always tie a stopper knot at the end of your rope. That reminder spread fast, and climbers everywhere repeated it with new seriousness. It is one of the most basic steps in the sport. He was 23 years old. He was one of the best climbers alive on Earth, and by every single measure, he was just beginning. Balin Miller was not just a climber. He was proof that some people burn so brightly that the world cannot hold them long enough. Tie your knots. Always climb higher. Subscribe for more stories like this.